Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into a period I think you'll find particularly fascinating mid-20th century theater. We're talking a period roughly 1930 to 1960, shaped by, well, just about everything. World wars, the Cold War starting to heat up, the civil rights movement gaining momentum. It's all there reflected on the stage. And we've got some great sources to guide us presentation slides outlining all the major playwrights, concepts, the whole shebang. We're going to tackle some really interesting questions, like how did events like World War II and the looming threat of nuclear war actually influence what ended up on stage? And how did playwrights like Arthur Miller and Tennessee Williams use their platform to really dig into the social issues of their day? Plus, we'll look at the rise of method acting, something I know you find really interesting, and how it changed the way we see performances even today. To help us untangle all this, we've got our expert in all things theater.
It's a period where you really see this collision of art and history. Playwrights weren't shying away from the big questions, not at all. They were tackling things like identity, disillusionment, even the meaning of existence. Head on.
And they were experimenting like crazy with styles, realism, expressionism, even absurdism. Imagine a play where the rules are, I don't know, kind of thrown out the window, plots twist in ways you never see coming, characters searching for meaning in a world that feels like it's lost its compass. That's absurdism for you, and it really captures that sense of unease you see throughout the mid-20th century.
And it wasn't just the writing that was changing. Actors were changing how they performed too. Method acting exploded onto the scene. And it wasn't just a technique, it was a whole phenomenon, reflecting a bigger shift in society towards this need for authenticity. Think Marlon Brando, James Dean. They became icons of this new style, really pulling audiences in with their raw emotion.
Do you think that resonated so strongly because society itself was feeling that unease? After two world wars, the threat of nuclear war hanging over everyone's heads, the fight for social justice, it feels like people were looking for a way to process all of that, and theater gave them a space to do that.
Absolutely, a space to confront all those anxieties, but also a platform to question everything, to challenge, even to poke fun at the absurdity of it all.
And speaking of questioning everything, let's talk about Arthur Miller, one of the giants of this era. His plays weren't just plays, they were these powerful social commentaries, cutting right to the core of American life.
He had this uncanny ability to capture what everyday Americans were feeling. Take Death of a Salesman, for example. It wasn't just about one man's tragic fall from grace. It tapped into this national disillusionment with the American dream, a feeling that resonated with so many people in those post-war years.
I remember seeing Death of a Salesman for the first time. It was like someone had peeled back the layers of this seemingly ordinary life and exposed all the raw emotions simmering beneath the surface. That's what makes Miller's work so powerful.
You said it. And then there's The Crucible, using the Salem witch trials as an allegory. What a bold statement on social responsibility and the dangers of mass hysteria. And it really resonated during the McCarthy era when fear and paranoia were gripping America.
Yeah. It's amazing how he used history to comment on contemporary issues. Speaking of exploring those complex social dynamics, we can't forget Tennessee Williams.
Oh, Williams. He was a master at digging into those complicated relationships, especially in the American South. His plays, they really peeled back the layers of that society, exposed the decay, the struggles people faced. You see it in plays like A Streetcar Named Desire, The Glass Menagerie, characters wrestling with their pasts, their desires, and the weight of all those expectations society throws on them.
That sense of decay you mentioned, it's interesting. It's not just the physical world that's falling apart. It's their dreams, their hopes, even their sense of belonging. It's like Williams is showing us just how fragile we can be when we face loss, disappointment, all of that.
Exactly, and he does it so beautifully, that poetic language, those vivid images. You can't help but feel for these characters, so full of life, longing, even if their world is filled with pain.
And the impact on acting, it's huge. A Streetcar Named Desire really became a showcase for Marlon Brando and method acting.
Oh, it did. It's amazing how Williams's exploration of those raw emotions lined up perfectly with the intensity of method acting. A match made in theater heaven, and it changed acting forever.
This era, it's so exciting because everything's connected. The changes in society, the experimental writing, these new acting styles.
Absolutely. And it's not just happening in America. The world's dealing with the fallout of colonialism. Playwrights in Africa, Asia, the Caribbean, they're all using theater to explore identity, cultural resistance, the complexities of these post-colonial societies. It adds a whole other layer to this already incredible era.
It really shows how theater can be this global platform for exploring what it means to be human. Those themes, love, loss, searching for where you belong, they resonate with everyone no matter where you are.
It reminds us that we're all connected, even with all the things that try to divide us.
And speaking of exploring the human condition, we can't skip Samuel Beckett.
Yeah.
And The Rise of Absurdism, Waiting for Godot. That's a play that throws all the rules out the window, and it makes you confront those big questions about why we're even here.
Beckett's work, it gets right to the core of what it means to exist in a world that doesn't always make sense.
Yeah.
His character's stuck in those endless loops, waiting, always waiting for something that might never come. But their conversations, so witty, almost philosophical. You laugh, but then you start questioning everything.
It's entertaining but unsettling, too. Like, he's showing us how absurd being human really is.
Exactly. And Waiting for Godot, that was a turning point. Absurdism, it became a reaction to that post-war disillusionment, the Cold War anxieties. People were desperate for meaning, and Beckett captured that perfectly.
What do you think he'd say about the world today? I bet he'd still find plenty of material for those absurdist plays.
You're probably right. That search for meaning, it never really goes away.
And while we're talking about these complex themes, we can't leave out Eugene O'Neill. His plays, so personal, almost like he was writing his own life story, digging deep into family life, the human psyche, long day's journey into night. That's a perfect example.
It's a tough play to watch. This family falling apart, all the secrets, the resentment, the addiction, it's all there, bubbling under the surface. But it's powerful, honest. It forces you to face those uncomfortable truths.
It's like he's saying, look, this is what being human is all about. This is love. This is hurt, betrayal, forgiveness. And even though it's set in a specific time and place, those themes, they're universal.
Oh, absolutely. O'Neill's plays, they're epic, exploring family, addiction, searching for who you are.
Yeah.
Challenging, yes, but incredibly rewarding.
It's fascinating to see how all these playwrights, Miller, Williams, Beckett, O'Neill, they all have these different approaches to exploring what it means to be human, responding to the same forces in the world. But their styles, their voices, so unique.
That's what makes this era so special. So much variety. No one right way to tell a story. It was a time of experimentation. Playwrights pushing the boundaries of what theater could be.
And we can't talk about innovation without circling back to method acting. It really changed the game. Yeah, it wasn't just pretending anymore. Actors were going so deep into their characters' minds, using their own experiences, their own emotions, to create something truly real.
It demanded a lot of vulnerability from those actors, though, right?
Yeah.
They had to be willing to put themselves out there emotionally in ways that couldn't have been easy.
Oh, absolutely. That rawness, that vulnerability, it connected with audiences on a whole other level. It's no wonder guys like Brando and Dean became icons. They embodied that raw energy, that search for authenticity that really defined mid-20th century theater.
They were the face of a generation wrestling with so much change, questioning everything, trying to find meaning in a world that had been completely upended.
And it's amazing how their impact is still felt today, right? Method acting is still taught in acting schools. So many actors today point to Brando and Dean as inspirations.
It shows just how powerful those performances were, how they captured the essence of their time.
As we wrap up our deep dive here, it's clear this was an era of incredible creativity, innovation, reflection. The plays, the playwrights, the acting styles, they all mirrored those turbulent times.
It reminds us that art is never created in a vacuum. It's always responding to the world around it, reflecting it, shaping it.
That's a big takeaway for me. Theater, when it's at its best, it can be this incredible force for commentary, reflection, challenging the way things are.
Absolutely. And it can also be a source of comfort, connection, shared laughter, even tears, reminding us we're not alone in our struggles, our joys, our search for meaning.
So as we come to the end of our exploration here, what stands out to you most about this era? What will you take away from our deep dive into mid-20th century theater?
For me, it's that resilience of the human spirit. Even with the horrors of war, the anxieties of the Cold War, the fight for social justice, these artists, they kept creating, exploring, challenging, inspiring. Their work shows us that even in the darkest times, art has the power to lift us up, to connect us, to offer hope.
I couldn't agree more. And for everyone listening, I encourage you to keep exploring this incredible period. Pick up a play by Miller, Williams, Beckett, any of the amazing playwrights we've talked about. Experience the power of their words firsthand.
And if you have the chance, see a live performance. There's nothing quite like that energy, that immediacy. It's a reminder of the power of stories, of human connection, and the lasting legacy of this remarkable era.
Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive into mid-20th century theater. It's been a pleasure exploring it with you. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep the spirit of theater alive.